blackberry bushes. I don't know whether you like blackberries, but I've got to tell you that blackberry and apple pie made by my wife with cream is just the best dessert in the world. You ought to have a button that you can press right now and get a taste of it, but you don't, so you're just going to have to trust me. But here's some blackberries. It's late October as we're filming this, and maybe you can see there's one poor blackberry left on this bush. Last year there were loads of blackberries, even into November, but this year they're just all gone. There are seasons, you see, for fruit. It's a season for when fruit should be expected, and a season when fruit really, you'd be lucky to get any. And one day Jesus is walking with his friends, and he had this extraordinary supernatural experience. It's called being hungry. I get it a lot of the time. And he looked at the tree and he reached out for a fig, and there were no figs, and he cursed the tree. And his disciples said, "What are you doing? It's not the season for figs." And Jesus, by his actions, said this: "I'm the creator of the universe. I'll decide. I'll decide when it's the season for fruit or not." But we're not like that, are we? We have these boxes that we put God in. We have these boxes that we put ourselves in. We decide the shape that our lives are going to be. We decide when it's time and when it's not time. And Jesus says in Psalm 23, "I'm going to make you lie down in green pastures." There are times when you need to sit, when you need to be fallow, when you need to just dig deep and get the nutrients out and restore your soul. And it's not a season for fruit. It's not a season when I expect fruit and you need to relax, because actually I'm the gardener. I'm the vine dresser. I'm the one who decides when it's the time for fruit and when it's the time not to have fruit. Of course, the reverse is true as well, isn't it? We think that we've done our bit. We've just been involved in that ministry situation. We've just done that pastoral call. We've just done that Bible study. We've just done our religious bit for the day. And we don't think it's time anymore. And God says, "No, there's that person to talk to. Right now I'm expecting fruit from that bit of your life. And I demand it. Because I'm God." Impressive. I don't know what your life's like. I don't know what the life of your church is like. It'd be rude of me to ask. But I know this about my life, that there have been a lot of times when there's been a lot of foliage, a lot of greenery. It looks good on the outside. It's full of busyness, full of ministry, full of good things perhaps. But you know what? When Jesus looks, there's no fruit. There's just no fruit. Without fruit, it's just bush. It's just leaves. It's just foliage. When our children were young, Janet and I decided that we would do the shopping on a Saturday as normal, and then we would go to the kind of restaurant-y bit of Debenhams or wherever it was. They design it so that the tray that you get is slightly too wide for the little railway track that runs around the edge, which means if you let go of it, it tips off with your soup and whatever it is. So you've got to hold on to that, you've got to hold on to the stroller, you've got to hold on to your bags, you've got to hold on to the children. You need about 18 pairs of hands. I realise I'm stressed when I start to cut up Janet's food as well. I think this is a bad idea. Into the midst of this situation, a man comes from another table. And he says, "Can I borrow the mustard?" Frankly, at this point, he can borrow the mustard, he can borrow the children, he can borrow my food, he can borrow anything he likes. I'm past caring. And Janet shouts across to him, "No!" And it's that point that I realise that he hasn't taken the mustard at all. He's taken the jar of baby food, the cold macaroni cheese baby food. That's what he's borrowed. I wish that Janet hadn't said anything. I wish she'd just kind of nudged me and said, "Watch this." as he takes this jar of cold macaroni cheese and scrapes it onto his gammon steak and takes a bite, expecting the tang of mustard, only to get that cloying flavour of cold macaroni cheese. And as I'm thinking that, God just speaks into that situation and says, you know what, David? That's just like you. Jesus says, I'm the vine, I'm the gardener, I get to decide what's fruit. I expect you to bear fruit. And instead of bearing fruit, so often what you give the world instead of the fruit of the Spirit is the activity of the Spirit, is the busyness of the Spirit. Instead of being salt and light, instead of being mustard, you're the cold macaroni cheese. And I didn't die for you to represent me by being cold macaroni cheese. I died so that you could be Jesus, so that together you can be body of Christ. You can represent God. You can be the mustard, the salt, and the light. Well, how do we get to be that? By allowing him to prune us. By allowing him to cut away the things that are dead, the things that are dying. By allowing him to shape. By allowing him to decide what's good and what's bad. By him being the one that sets the agenda. By him being the gardener. Jesus said this, I am the true vine.